let us continue our discussion on the application of genetic engineering. There are two that we need to discuss. The first one is production of genetically modified food, or the GMF, and the second is production of insulin. So let's look at the first one, production of genetically modified food. So before that, let's look at the term genetically modified organisms, in short GMO. So genetically modified organisms, or the GMOs, are organisms that contain recombinant DNA, the rDNA. Recombinant DNA technology enables production of new gene combinations. And therefore, organisms that contains recombinant DNA is known as transgenic organisms. So in other words, GMO and transgenic organisms are the same. Okay, so let's look at examples. Okay, examples of genetically modified organisms here in your textbook. Okay, so the first one here on your right, on your left. Okay, this genetically modified cow produces milk that does not contain beta lactoglobulin, which is a type of protein that causes allergy among some children. Okay, so this powder milk from GM cows contain a human protein which is good for premature babies. Okay, so the second example here on your right, okay, this is genetically modified goat which possesses the human gene which codes for blood clotting factor. So this blood coagulation factor is found in goat's milk and can be purified and therefore used to treat hemophilic patients. Okay. Now this is a picture showing a wide variety of organic of the GMO, genetically modified organisms, genetically modified plants, and also animals. Okay, next one, GMF. Genetically modified food is food which results from GM plants and animals. Recombinant DNA technology has successfully produced many beneficial varieties of crops. Okay, for example, paddy, oil palm, pineapple, corn, and soya bean, and also livestock like salmon, cattle, and goat. Okay, so GMF, genetically modified food, possesses DNA from other species of plants or animals. But the consumption of GMF by humans may cause health implications which are still unknown. Okay, so let's look at the characteristics of genetically modified food. Okay, here the first one, GMF is resistance to herbicide. Okay, GMF is resistance to herbicide. For example, we have the GM soybeans, which with the herbicide resistance gene, which allow farmers to spray fields and kill weeds, but not the soy plant itself. Okay, next, GMF is also resistance to disease. Okay, and third one is GMF has been used in application in medicine, and GMF tolerance to heavy metals. It's said to have tolerance to heavy metals and also resistance to pest. Okay, increased resistance to pests. For example, we have the GM corn, which can produce toxin when attacked by pests, and thus reducing the use of pesticides. Okay, so these are among the characteristics of genetically modified food. Okay, let's look at the advantages and also the disadvantages of GMF. Okay, the first one, it can help to overcome worldwide food shortage by producing high quality transgenic crops and also livestock, which we have seen in the picture just now. Okay, number two, reduce cost of food production. Okay, for example, we have the tomato GM, or the GM tomatoes, which can last longer and be sold in the market for a longer time. Okay, so these GM tomatoes can last longer because a gene that causes the softening of the tomato is removed. Okay, so the third advantage is increase in nutritional values of crops. For example, we have the GM rice. Okay, GM rice with daffodil genes, which can produce beta carotene, which can then be converted to vitamin A in humans. And therefore, this GM rice contain more vitamin A and may help to solve some problems of malnutrition, especially in the third world country. Okay, next one is reduce problems of crops related to pests. Okay, as for example, we have the GM corn, which can just now I've mentioned. GM corn can produce a toxin when attacked by pests, and thus reducing the use of pesticides. Okay, which leads us to the next advantage of GMF. Again, that is reduced usage of pesticides. Okay, next one is increase in production will reduce the price of food, and thus this increased food availability. Okay, do you still remember the meaning of food availability? Okay, this is we have touched this before in chapter 10 about food security, and one of the the 4 components of food security is availability of food. Okay, let's continue to look at some of the disadvantages of GMF. Okay, the first one, endangered natural species. Okay, endangered natural species. For example, the superorganisms, okay, which the results from genetic engineering may compete with the natural organisms in the environment. Okay, so these may lead to disturb of ecological balance if there is accidental release of this GMO into the environment. Okay, the second disadvantage is there is a slight possibility that the foreign gene in the GMF may be transferred to humans. So that means this is threats to human health. Okay. For example, antibiotic resistance gene. Okay, so that means the GM food may lead to transfer of antibiotic resistant genes to pathogens. Okay, the third disadvantage is it may have adverse effects on human health and also genetic material. Okay, so these are some of the pros and cons of the GMF. Okay, next one. This is the example, some other examples of livestock. In this case, the super salmon. Okay, look at the picture, the length of normal salmon at 8 months versus the genetically modified super salmon. Okay, but somehow this super salmon it has been approved by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, as a safe food for consumption, okay, in the US of America and also Canada. And it is modified by inserting a growth hormone, okay, growth hormone regulating genes that can grow to market sizes in significantly less time. Okay, the growth hormone gene, it is the combination of the growth hormone gene from a Chinook salmon inserted into the genome of Atlantic salmon. So grow at a higher rate and it can be produced throughout the year. Okay, this is another example. Okay, potato, which is important crop to people who live in cold climates. It's very sensitive to low temperature and frost. So therefore, a gene from this Arabidopsis species plant, which enables the plant to tolerate freezing condition, is inserted into the potato genome, okay, to create a genetically modified potato, and it grows well in the cold climate. Okay.